Hello, and welcome back to Seize the Data. On today's episode, we are joined by Sid Raisoni, a CDO and strategist who has reimagined how data and AI drives growth at various companies. My co-host today is Anoop Goris, lead product manager at Datalogs. So, as head of AI and BI at Philip Morris, VP of analytics at WWE, and earlier head of analytics for Nestlé Waters, Sid has turned fan and shopper data into new revenue streams and real-time demand signals. Today, he advises Fortune 500 boards and high-growth boards on architecting AI agents and data products that move the top line, not just dashboards. While many CDOs still start with governance, Sid reflects on the next-gen CDO, one who treats data as a product and AI as the fastest path to innovation and market share. A trusted advisor for many C-suite executives, he distills complex analytics into compelling business stories and is currently managing partner at TechnoWorks, a boutique data and AI firm that helps companies grow with AI. In short, Sid helps businesses replace data for reporting with data for revenue. Sid, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to have this conversation.
Amazing.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm really happy to get to know you a little better. So let's get started. I heard in the introduction that you were the head of AI and BI. So my first question is in line with that. So I wanted to know, what are the most significant shifts you've seen emerge that directly lead to what many now call BI sprawl?
Sure, great question. So before we tackle that question, Anoop and Tina, at its core, insights, analytics, and AI teams exist to turn raw data into value, right? And we do this by taking this raw data and turning it into a repeatable business moving outcome for the entire company. And this means positioning yourself as a trusted advisor. What's happened in the past 5 to 8 years is that goal has somehow been interpreted to be a report generating role, which is where the issues with BI sprawl have begun to happen. Beyond that, over the past few years, a few forces have begun to converge. Number one is that cloud pricing has made storage too cheap to delete. Self-service BI has become an excuse to let every analyst just publish one-click reports, and therefore there are hundreds, if not thousands of them. And then most recently, Gen AI tools are making it much easier to now render dashboards in a few minutes. So to me, BI sprawl is a reporting output which is actually growing faster than any agreed upon life cycle to govern it, right? For example, at the last company I worked for, when I sat down with the CFO after a performance review, she pointed out that she had 7 different revenue reports in one folder, which showed different perspectives on revenue, and she didn't know which one to use. So those kinds of issues begin to create trust issues within organizations, and actually the overusage of the same tools that are meant to democratize data and insights are actually leading to them being diluted. So I'd say these shifts, along with a misaligned perspective on leadership, is triggering BI sprawl, and a lot needs to be done to address it.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I've been talking to many data leaders over the past months and years, and it's always the same problem. The BI sprawl always comes back. You mentioned BI sprawl as having too many reports, not the right quality of reports and dashboards, but isn't it also the organizational and the cultural and the process related problem, or how do you look at that?
Absolutely. Volume alone isn't the root cause, right? It's essentially a lack of ownership, or lack of the focus on what success should look like, right? So what's happened in large organizations, as technology and data has become easier to access, more resources and capital has been allocated to do something with data. These decentralized teams optimize locally to produce reports. And every time a manager or a business leader asks for some sort of insight, it turns into a report. And culturally, deleting these reports feels a lot riskier. I'd rather report than not, because nobody's asking me about cost. And process-wise, most companies have an onboarding workflow for new dashboards, but no offboarding path. So the legacy pile grows, and there's no way to govern this sprawl, which is essentially where we find ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you said, it's not about costs necessarily, because BI tools in itself, they're really not that expensive, especially not in the bigger scheme of things. But it's the trust and the lack of trust. You cannot find the one that the people make decisions based on these reports and dashboards. If you cannot find the one that you need to make decisions on, then what are we actually doing?
Yeah, and I would actually gently push back on that comment. Costs are actually quite hidden. Fortune 500s are spending millions and millions of dollars on these BI tools. It's just that they are not directly associated with outcomes, and therefore the use of them and the waste around it is not really monitored or governed in any way, which then never gets questioned. So I would say cost is an issue. It's just not a known issue.
Yeah, I'm really glad you bring that up. Sorry, Tina, go ahead.
No worries. No, yeah, you bring up such a good point, Sid. And this is why a lot of data mature organizations come to us, kind of when these hidden costs come out of the woodwork. And now there's pushback from the CFO and these kinds of teams. And that's when organizations and data leaders that we work with really start to question, okay, but how are we paying all of this in infrastructure, licenses, and then of course the resources to actually manage these reports and dashboards? So I guess at what point do you have to start thinking about really retiring and getting rid of redundant and outdated BI assets? Like, when is that turning point? Is there one?
Yes, there is one, and there should be one, and there will naturally be one. So the hidden costs are actually much more toxic than the known ones, right? The known costs are straightforward. So licensing, cloud spend. There could be multiple contractors or analysts working on reports which may not produce the outcome the business will truly benefit from. And this has implications in terms of how the business actually is meant to make decisions using data, and actually creates security issues. So for example, data engineers spend a fifth of their time chasing lineage questions. Business users lose confidence when numbers clash. So what ends up happening is that they export to Excel and create their own reports.
Yikes.
Excel begins to grow. People like those reports. Somebody pastes a BI layer on top of it and makes it nice to look at, right? And yet, so this essentially spurs more shadows and more shadow reports that governance can't see. All of this has to begin with, dealt with in two ways. Number one is you do need much stronger business engagement and partnership. And number two is you do need tools and ways of creating transparency around what are the true inner workings behind BI. Where is metadata living? What are the definitions behind it? And how do we actually go about managing it so that there is a true life cycle that is managing the input and output?
You just explained the data product flow. So do you think that the data product approach can be the answer to the data democratization that all business users aim for now?
Sure. So, data democratization is a beautiful word that everybody wants to materialize. But let's take a moment to kind of define it, right? To me, democratization is powerful precisely because it's meant to reduce friction between the business question and the answer. Okay, it's meant to make access to that answer much faster and easier. That, however, has been translated to let me just publish a report. Democratization doesn't spend enough time in truly understanding the business problem. What are the reasons why that question even exists? What's going to happen when that question gets answered? What is the granularity at which the question needs to be answered and at what cadence? Who all need to be in the room? And beyond the data that's available, what else will be discussed in order to make a decision? That is what democratization should actually incorporate in its thinking. However, the easier answer is let me publish a report. So while thoughtfully, when thoughtfully executed, democratization can unlock faster, smarter decisions without hidden costs. However, at this point, given the tools that we have and how easy it can be to publish reports, the opposite is happening. Loss of trust, lack of data-driven decisions, and the CDO organization not being on the table at the table when those decisions are being made. So that's essentially what we're talking about: is how can tools like data logs help alleviate some of those issues as we move forward.
Yeah, that's a great point. So it sounds like asking the right questions and getting that alignment first from that executive level is the place to start. But I guess when you're kind of in the weeds already, you're overwhelmed by this sprawl, there is no trust. There are all of these costs that are starting to surface. There's, of course, the inherent compliance and security risks as well. I mean, what do you do? What are the most critical first steps that data leaders can take to start regaining that control?
Yeah, number one is more of a leadership imperative, where I would encourage data leaders to establish business partnership capabilities, where they spend a majority of their time just understanding the business context, the business problem, and instead of being order takers, I want this report, I want this metric, I want this trend, start thinking about the true reasons behind the problem statement. Start understanding how to shape the problem itself so that they shift from being an order taker to more of a leader and help define the future. What's happening is AI co-pilots, for example, are just accelerating that report creation even more and enabling automated reporting. Tools like data logs are actually embedding governance by default in every artifact that is version, catalog, and policy checked on. So that has to be in place before the winners actually combine these guardrails with the leadership norms that are needed and start creating dashboards like true value generating outputs, right? So that's precisely where we are in terms of the future that you alluded to, Tina, in terms of how do you stop the sprawl and move towards more outcome-based, value-based AI era that every business wants at this point.
Yeah, maybe AI will be the wake-up call that many executives need to address the BI sprawl.
Yeah, because I mean, we always say, like, everyone's focused on AI initiatives and there are these massive AI budgets, but when we think about AI readiness, a lot of that just involves cleaning up that sprawl before you can implement AI within BI. So I guess that is a good segue into our next question for you is, when you're looking ahead, how do you foresee the BI landscape and the challenge of sprawl evolving with technologies like AI? I mean, these BI tools are already starting to implement, Microsoft Copilot, Tableau's AI capabilities. I mean, what do you do?
Have you seen Tableau Next and how they embed AI in the whole dashboard creation process?
Yeah, so the best-in-class companies are actually putting governance by default, right? So as I mentioned, every artifact needs to be versioned, cataloged, and policy checked on save. So what's going to happen is when that kind of governance by default gets implemented, you have eyes on the fact that what is being inputted and how is the output being used. Which output is generating usage and value and conversations, as opposed to it just taking up digital and dollar space, right? So that's step one to me in order to get this problem addressed to begin with.
Yeah, I'm glad that there are more and more companies on the market that work with AI governance. But AI governance, it focuses on all the policies related to the AI model, less on the output of what the AI model has created. So I think we are not working with, or we're not doing AI governance in data logs, but we do work with everything that was created by AI and the sprawl and the results of that and the costs associated with it. So that is still something that many people forget.
Absolutely, and you know, this I'm sort of alluding to the future, but what I'd love to see is a real-time searchable inventory of all data assets, right? Data sets, data domains, metrics, reports with usage telemetry baked in. And that creates that kind of transparency and prioritization, which then will lead to outcome-based value, and the CDO organization being truly positioned as a trusted advisor as opposed to a generator of reports.
I'm glad you mentioned it. We already have an inventory. What we are currently missing is operational lineage. So I put on the roadmap to have operational lineage on top of this inventory so that you can see who is using the dashboards, what kind of refresh schedules are being set, what pipelines are used in Fabric, for example. So I think that this will really be a game changer, especially together with our BI similarity feature that is also coming, and the impact analysis that comes with it. So looking forward to our future.
And that's super exciting, because once leaders understand that that's possible, and they understand that these 12 variants of EBITDA or revenue, right, are in the one folder, which is accessed by the CFO. The debate will shift from who has built this to which single source do we fund and maintain, right? That awareness and catalyst is needed for the reform within BI itself.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. It was so nice talking to you. I have one final question, if you have the time. This is personally one that I loved, which is why I wanted to ask it for you. If you had a magic wand to instantly fix one systemic issue in how large enterprises approach and manage their data and decision making, what would that be and why?
Sure. So I would approach it similar to what I alluded earlier, with a two-part fix. The first would be a strong capability around business partnership, understanding the key questions which are relevant to the business. And most recently, I'm advising a CPG firm it's a global CPG firm, and understanding what their top questions have been has been quite a journey so far. So when talking to the key leaders within the organization, we quickly came to the realization that there is no alignment behind the key focus areas where data analytics and AI should help, right? Should it be growth versus margin discipline? Should it be portfolio focus and capital allocation? Should it be digital acceleration and operational edge, sustainability, so on and so forth? So aligning the business around the key questions and initiatives that could drive answers and actually help accelerate value is step number one. Step number two would be more tactical. That is a live searchable inventory of all data assets, something that Data Logs does, right? Where I have access to a transparent access to all the data sets, to the metrics, to the reports, with complete ownership and eventually lineage, right? And this would help me understand real-time usage, and then I can leverage that to allocate my resources in the most value-focused way. So all in all, the total visibility would be the forcing function, I think, that turns chaos into accountability.
Sounds like we are a perfect match, because you work on step one, we work on step two, and together we build a better future.
And what a way to close.
Fabulous.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for these insights, Sid. I mean, you were one of the first data leaders we interviewed for our State of BI report that we published earlier this year. Also, if you haven't read it yet, it's going to be linked down in the bio. But these insights are what help us keep that dialogue and conversation going around the state of BI, what's changing, what data leaders need to know, and what's coming next. So this was super valuable. I hope everyone listening also got some value out of it. Any final closing thoughts before we end here?
Let's keep AI and data alive with the focus on value. And thanks for having me, and it's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, I'm Tina Batia, co-founder here at Datalogs, head of business development. You were tuning in to Seize the Data. Thank you, and see you next time.